made some nice headlines in your visit in Egypt. I thought it was remarkably important. It shows again how the American Jewish community is situated strategically on behalf of Israel on some very important topics, and I hope you have a very productive visit. In recent days there were some headlines made about a unique opportunity which actually occurred a year ago, exactly a year ago, in a confidential summit which took place in Aqaba, chaired by then Secretary of State John Kerry, together with the Egyptian President Sisi, with the Jordanian King who was the host, King Abdullah, and part of it was actually their interface with President Abbas outside the summit, and of course with Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was present at the summit. That summit was the basis, as was reported yesterday in Haaretz by Barak Ravid, and today again, was the basis or the crystallization of a process which actually took more and more energy and consumed more energy in the months that preceded the summit, to see where and how to change the course of history. In that summit, Secretary of State Kerry allegedly presented some new parameters for a renewed peace process in the region, in light of a wave of terror which had then occurred at its peak, and in view of the new strategic alignments in the region. Remember, in each and every meeting I had with you guys in the last few years, I mentioned it time and again. I said there is a convergence of interest between Israel and some of the Sunni moderate states, and you see it for yourself. You've been in Morocco, you've been in Egypt, you understand that there's something which is different from what you have known in early years, definitely in past generations, that Israel is welcomed in the region by moderate Sunni Arab states, and as a major reaction to the Iran deal, these states are willing to cooperate even further with Israel. They are led by moderate young leaders, younger than before, less frightened by the Israel complex which their predecessors had in relations to Israel. The preceding leaders in Camp David 2000 just simply fled away and were not willing to assume any responsibility as to the Israeli-Palestinian process. And here these leaders, some of them immediately adjacent to Israel, were willing to make a historic change with Prime Minister Netanyahu under the auspices of Secretary Kerry, based on certain parameters which Kerry presented. As it was reported, Prime Minister Netanyahu presented his own ideas. That event was the basis for the talks which occurred later in the month, and in the month of March, between Netanyahu and myself, as to the possibility of a different structure of the government, or what you'd call a national unity government, to meet the challenge. I was willing to review it. I wanted certain guarantees, and I wanted to hear directly from the leadership of the international community, as well as the leadership of the moderate Arab nations, and I got it. I heard it directly. I got the information directly. And that convinced me that what they said to me, which was, if you go in to the government, it will be a proof of Netanyahu's willingness or seriousness, of confidence in his commitment to the project, in his commitment to the process. And that's why I negotiated with Netanyahu, a national unity government, in a process which came to its peak in May 2015 and broke down, unfortunately, by the mere fact that Netanyahu fled away, turned his back, as opposed to his commitments to third parties. He himself, at the end, opted to go with Lieberman, caving into inner pressure from his coalition, especially from Naftali Bennett and his allies in Likud, Levin and Elkin and others, and simply reneged on the basic understandings which we had. And these understandings, had they been fulfilled, would have prevented the catastrophe of the UN Security Council vote later this year, and would have prevented some very disturbing processes within Israel itself when it comes to the well-being of its democracy, when it comes to some of the more strengthening of some of the more extreme elements in our society and in politics. But that history will judge Netanyahu on that failure, unfortunately. But what I wanted to say is that I was vehemently attacked, both from within my camp and by many in the press, for the mere fact that I negotiated with Netanyahu. And I could not disclose this most confidential information, which, by the way, there was much more to it than was published. And I was, as I gave my word of honor, and I was part of a confidential process, I could not do that at all. And now, as the facts come about, it is clear that it bases the logic of my steps. At the time I said that I have identified a unique historical opportunity to change the course of the region, and that is why I was willing to risk my own seat, my own political career, as I went against some voices in my camp who were short-sighted, as well voices in the right-wing camp in Israel, voices in Likud and voices in the press, who did not understand how deep and strong the process is. And now we come to this moment again, whereby we stand in front of reality. The American administration or President Trump says you can have one state, two states, whatever. And therefore the truth of taking the decision, the historical decision, lies with us. You heard Naftali Bennett before me. And I'm here to give the opposing view totally. And the opposing view says the following. Few basic assumptions. The settlement enterprise is so big and wide that it is endangering the future of the Jewish state. Two, the basic democratic traits of Israel are at risk because of the fact that we are not separating from the Palestinians. And three, that there is still hope based on two main pillars, which are regional opportunity, which I just outlined before, as well as the commitment to separate from the Palestinians, in order to make sure that instead of what we see today demographically between the Jordan River and the sea, which is unfortunately an Arab majority of Arabs, as more Arabs than Jews, and you can read the findings of Professor Sergio Della Pergola from Hebrew U, who would give you the whole data. Therefore, we must pursue the separation from the Palestinians based on clear security guidelines which are vital for Israel's well-being and future. And for me, the victory of Zionism would be if the international community accepts an agreement whereby the major settlement blocks, Ma'ale Domim, Gush Etzion, and Ariel, will be part and parcel of the State of Israel, and they will include most of the settlers. The Jordan River will be the security border of the State of Israel. The IDF will have free availability of roaming in the area. The Palestinian state will be a demilitarized state, but there will be an international recognition of the implementation of the 1947 UN partition resolution, which calls for a Jewish state and an Arab state. That's what we need to aim for, despite all the setbacks, despite all the troubles, despite all the terror, despite all the skepticism and the fear. Because if we look lucidly at the situation, yes, there are two huge dangers which lie in front of us. One from the outside, which is in Iran, and on this I don't have any daylight with the Prime Minister. And two, from within Israel, the possibility of losing the nation state of the Jewish people and losing the unequivocal Jewish majority in a democratic Jewish state for eternity. This is the question. That's where we are at. Now what I'm proposing in light of this, and based on what David Ben-Gurion said in April 1949 in front of the Knesset, he said, as to the question whether the IDF at that time was to conquer the West Bank, he said, when I had the dilemma between a Jewish state and losing the Jewish state by conquest of more land, I opted for the Jewish state. That was the historic resolution. He actually felt the same in 1967. And that's the real issue that lies in front of us. I'm not running away, or I'm not looking back or giving up on our huge emotional, historical, religious connections to Judea and Samaria. They are the cradle of our creation as a nation. But I'm trying to be a lucid, logical, reasonable leader who understands what all leaders who've sat in that chair of Prime Minister understand. That it can't continue that way, and we need to separate from the Palestinians in order to preserve the notion of the nation state of the Jewish people. My idea at present, and that's where I'll conclude and open the floor for questions, is the following. We should go on a multi-stages process. Actually, one of my conclusions is that there's no way one can reach an agreement in one shot, in one conference, in one process. It's almost impossible, definitely bearing in mind the current leaderships of both nations. But we can move towards that goal, and that means the following: reiterate the party's commitment to the two-state solution, something which was not said at the White House, unfortunately, because Bennett threatened. 2, identify a period of a few years, I'd say even up to a decade, whereby the area in dispute is clean of terror, incitement, and adverse activities, and simultaneously the Palestinians get more authority in Area C, a special civil authority, as opposed to what Bennett says, who says annex Area C. Area C is 60% of the West Bank. And more authority as to their ability of nation building, including their ability to build new neighborhoods adjacent to the major Arab cities, Palestinian cities, something which they've been asked for years and was part of the package which was carved out in Aqaba. 3, declare a settlement freeze outside the blocks in return for construction within the blocks. That was also discussed in that process. 4, accept main guidelines of the Arab Peace Initiative as a platform, together with a major regional initiative at its peak, a major regional conference. 5, continue the separation from the Palestinians by completing the fence, the security fence, as well as physical border or physical separation between Jerusalem and its 28 Palestinian villages around it. And 5, move towards opening up and easing the pressure on Gaza, demilitarization, together with, I would say, open up and development of Gaza, give hope to Gaza as part of the equation. All this can be done and identified as part of a process which, at the end of which, we will be ripe as nations, as people who have disseminated the notion of moving towards peace to negotiate on the core issues which are extremely complex, and I don't necessarily feel that we need to discuss them at this stage. But don't leave the track of the two-state solution. And when I heard at the White House the fact that the idea of a one-state solution was mentioned as a possibility, and the Prime Minister of Israel maneuvering in a lawyer-like, I would say, rhetoric, just to avoid saying the two-state solution idea, I felt uneasy, to say the least. I felt that every Israeli should have woke up in the morning sweating from the nightmare of Bosnia and Syria, that we will wake up to one day of two communities equal in size or even more Arabs than Jews, and losing the whole notion of the nation state of the Jewish people. This is the whole idea. This is my line, and that is what I'm challenging right now. And I believe that we should face that clearly, based on the fact that the regional partners are there, and they will not be able to come to any table or come get what one would say, and they will not be able to be seen publicly in moving towards a regional peace process without getting reward and consideration or compensation on the Palestinian-Israeli front. I will conclude here by thanking you wholeheartedly and open the floor for questions. Thank you very much.
Bougie, Malcolm says I should call you Isaac, but I'm going to call you Bougie.
Okay.
That was a very insightful position and statement, and it's clear what you have to say, and it's interesting that you shared with us the criticism that you had about a year ago in terms of what may have occurred in Aqaba, etc. Now we'll take the first three questions together, if you like, and we will answer them together. Thank you. Just identify yourself.
Nathan Diamond with the Orthodox Union. Thank you for being
Pardon? Can you repeat? I haven't heard you.
Nathan Diamond with the Orthodox Union.
Okay.
Thank you for being with us here. Could you say a little bit more, if you feel comfortable, about, you alluded to the conversations with the other leaders at Aqaba, and you made a subsequent statement.
I wasn't at that summit. I, of course, was aware of the summit.
Where you also alluded to that the possible acceptance of construction within the existing settlement blocks, and I'm going to throw in there East Jerusalem. Can you elaborate on what understandings there might have been at that time about what other Europeans or the others who you said you heard from directly were prepared to commit to with regard to construction within East Jerusalem and the settlement blocks?
I would say the following. The idea, the political structure which we've worked on was that I will be, in my position as foreign minister, in charge of the process, the peace process as a whole, the regional process. And part of the idea was the following. I demanded full veto on settlement construction beyond the 67 borders. And in return, I said that I would have a veto. Not necessarily, I wouldn't enable in certain areas and places, but I would have a veto. And in return, I will work proactively to get international consent as I come with a certain bill in my hand, that I would receive work on international consent of sorts to a construction within the settlement blocks. What happened was amazing. I worked with Netanyahu on a draft appendix to our agreement, which had included certain steps which were quite dramatic. Had these steps been agreed upon, namely had he agreed at the end to go for it, it would have changed the region. But what happened was that at some stage Netanyahu started being pressed by his peers. First was Minister Levin, who told him that you cannot use the words settlement blocks. That's unaccepted. The blocks are unaccepted anymore. we need to speak about the whole territory. And so I've agreed in principle that we would speak about construction in the main urban areas. Because what I wanted was really to exhaust the possibility of trying to make a history, of preventing another round of bloodshed, of preventing another round of coffins of soldiers and citizens. And as I attended the funeral of Daphna Meir, who was an incredible lady, who was murdered by her Palestinian neighbor in Otniel, I said to myself, this cannot go on. For heaven's sake, this is the responsibility of leaders to change history. And Netanyahu started melting. And he melted on the blocks, and thereafter he melted on the paper. He said, I cannot have it written. I can speak about it, but I cannot have it written. And the whole notion of it was that we would work on the ability of carving out the future borderline between the two nations by actually developing the blocks and getting international consent for it in return for a confidence-building measures, including measures of settlement freeze outside the blocks and other measures.
Marty Olin of the Religious Zionists of America, Mizrahi, I call him Mizrahi. I always want to thank you for your presence here. It's always...
If you look in your archives, please find the great visit of Rabbi Herzog, my grandfather, Alav Shalom, during World War II itself, and after the creation of Israel, and there were some incredible meetings with the Mizrahi at that time.
Is unequivalent. There is no...
No, I didn't push my ichus, I just had to say something for me. I grew up in Mizrahi. My grandma would speak about Mizrahi. She founded Emunah. So I always have great respect for Mizrahi.
So in that light, in that spirit, we say Haporish Sukat Shalom Aleinu Malkom.
That's in the prayer which Rav Herzog wrote.
And it says Sukkot. It's a temporary. We don't ask for peace for more than a short period.
Okay.
So my question to you is this: you describe differences between you and Bennett in a global
Don't you
fashion.
think they're big? They're a bit big.
I'm not so sure they are, because after
the question.
Bennett and I are good friends, but on this we beg to differ.
So after you have 10 caveats that you have outlined in a 10-year program. At the end of the day, right now as we sit here, given those initiatives that need to be accomplished in the first instance, does it really matter whether we talk about a one-state solution, a three-state solution, a four-state solution? You've identified yourself a set of criteria that need to be accomplished. So at the end of the day,
Okay, so let me answer.
What's the difference? That's my question.
The answer is that you have to have it embedded and ironclad as the goal. Otherwise, the national psyche and or indifference or national stichia will move towards the reality of one state. It's so obvious. You see how the settlement movement doesn't give up. It wants to conquer every hilltop available, angry at every stop or ceasing of construction, not identifying the national priority. Okay, this is the dilemma. Whilst I have respect for all my fellow citizens, and definitely citizens from the right or from the settlement movement, I believe they have to contain. And I think that's what we should have focused on. Please.
Let's take the two.
Last two questions.
Okay, we'll take
Malcolm.
two together and we'll be finished. No one else at the microphone.
What you present.
And you are?
And a quick question. A quick question,
But
please.
Malcolm, I can't
He asked
hear.
me who I am.
I just asked him what's his name.
You
It
don't want to
doesn't-
know, for sure. You may regret asking.
So you present for any reasonable person a superb vision. For any reasonable person, my question is,
Ask Malcolm.
unlike denazification and problems that took place in other areas of the world that were solved in one generation, with this professional refugee ship that you have for 4 or 5 generations, inculcating the hatred down and down and down and down, how do you envision changing the narrative to create a constituency for peace on the other side?
First of all, I don't understand what you mean about this refugee, whatever. I didn't get it. That's like Bennett land rhetoric. We're like threatening you with millions of Palestinians
No,
getting...
I didn't even get
Okay.
that. I didn't even mention that. I was only saying
Don't
that.
push it.
All I'm saying is the following.
No.
The part of the process really is to work on the people, bottom up. Yes, again, try again. Yes, and I think it's actually an opportunity now, because if there is a change in the mood, in the regional mood. I mean, what did I say in the elections? I said in the elections that one of the first things I'll do, apart from building rapport with the president of the United States, would go to Ramallah and speak to the people. Speak to the Palestinian people, like I expect their leaders to speak to us. We need to break the mental block that holds everything, both sides, from being able to foresee historical changes. But we've seen historical changes in our lifetime. Gorbachev is still alive, and Mandela is not. But there are things we never believed, and it can happen. Please.
My name is Morton Klein from ZOA.
What do you say?